for gamer goggles. Gamer-goggles.com. I love my shirts. I'm on them. Anyway, enough of that. That's nothing. It's time for another flip through, and it's a Rifts flip through. This one is on Coalition Wars 2, which is Coalition Overkill. Basically, it's the siege on Tolkeen, and this book's a little bit different from the first one. It's still setting a stage, but it's also showing a transition. The last book was largely about the politics and the definition and the disposition of the coalition. While this book is still about that, it has some other things that it does. So this book is about an obsessive, all-out drive to destroy Tolkeen. When I say that, it's much more than an objective. It's an all-out obsession. You can kind of say that the leaders of the coalition states are possessed by this belief that they must destroy all things. I'm looking for some good art here. That's one of the better pictures. I love the doctor, the medic in this picture. I don't know how well you can see that on camera. And if you're watching this on your phone, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to see it at all. That reminds me, let me know, people, if you want the camera to be a little bit closer to me and see less of the background and more of this stuff. I'm working on getting another camera. Here is a good example of what I think reflects this book right there. Now, that's not to say that there's anything spiritual or supernatural going on within the coalition. It's just, this is about war, and Overkill is about the coalition going out and, well, living their xenophobic religion, for lack of a better way to say it. They're xenophobes. They want to wipe out all alien races or all DBs, anything that's not human. And they basically worship technology. And the whole philosophy of the concept of coalition war, not just the coalition war on Tolkeen, but the whole philosophy of war in general, is been based and built on the fact that the coalition often sets out with an objective of wiping something out or going to battle or going to war with a preset notion, or not a preset notion, with the confidence of the historical past, their history, that they win. They generally go out and they wipe it out. In fact, this is a new experience for the coalition, the fact that they lose battles. And as citizens, it's a real shock. But historically, if you're a citizen of a country that always goes to war and wins and basically crushes their opponents, a lot like Rome did, as a citizen, you have a tremendous amount of faith in what your leaders say. And that's where the book starts. The book starts there, and it moves in, and you realize that Tolkeen is surprisingly formidable. The coalition has not fought an enemy like Tolkeen before. They have not fought guerrillas, which is basically what the magic users end up being. They basically end up being guerrillas. And magic is a new enemy to them, in the sense that they're used to fighting things with technology, and their technology is often bigger, better, and more sophisticated, or there's enough of it that they outnumber the enemy and they just overpower them, right? So the mistakes, there are some mistakes that come about in this book that bring about a change, and that's really what the first big part of the book is about this change. The mistake that the coalition made is that they took large battle forces into a territory where guerrilla warfare could be used against them. That was their first mistake. Now, that's important to note because you get a feel as a player that a small number of mages can take on large bits of a company in the military, and that's that's a big threat, right? And I think as a GM, that's something you kind of need to play around with and kind of drive home, because. Well, before we get that far, the other mistake they made is coalition. They didn't realize the coalition was better suited to fight a technological war. Now we can move on. So Tolkeen had some successes, and this causes some things. And you can see this triumph that they, by them fighting well, where and it comes down basically to their philosophy. The practitioners of magic basically said, we're going to use our brains, and we're going to stop them now and annihilate them later. And I have that in quotation marks in my notes, and I didn't mark a page in the book, but because I have it in quotation marks, I'm pretty sure it came right out of the book. And when I do my written review, I'll go back and I'll try and find that. But this does two things. This creates a war on two fronts for the coalition: physical and psychological. By beating up their morale, they're winning psychologically, and they're also beating them physically with things like nature, storms, lightning bolts, fire, things that they're not used to fighting and they don't know how to deal with. And this creates fear, which is the big thing. It's the biggest part of the unconventionality of magic. And as a GM, I think you have to, if your players are playing coalition characters, you have to create a certain sense of awe and glory in magic and make it godlike. Otherwise, they're not going to, otherwise they're just going to storm in there like nothing. And maybe you can play it up too. You can be like, they're just humans, right? Or they're just elves. And they go in there and then they get their butts handed to them and they run away wiping their noses crying, right? So then they come back a lot more careful. And that's fine. In fact, you can use an adventure like that just to get them into the right mindset. So the success of Tolkeen caused low morale. For the first time ever in the history of the Coalition armed forces, there were AWOLs, and people became disavowed. And the people of the Coalition states started to become demoralized because they were losing. Their husbands and children would go off to war and not come back. So, but the Coalition learns from their mistakes, obviously, because that's kind of what the Coalition does. They're an integral part of the story. And then they kind of create a new philosophy. And without saying too much of what they do, it's all-out war, and it's over. As the title says, it's overkill. They kind of adopt a scorched earth tactic. And I'm going to leave it at that, because as a GM, there's a lot of room for you to play. So what else does this book do? This book covers all the major players in this portion of the story arc, and even special squads. Like there's different special squads in here. Here we go. Maybe this is one. Oh no, that's the Twin Faces of Evil. That's like a whole adventure. The Crimson Wing. They've got the squad leader. They've got their special suits of armor, the members of the Crimson Wing, and what they do. So, to the world, the Crimson Wing are a group of power-armored mercenaries. Oh, this is the mercenary section. This isn't the special squad. So I kind of jumped ahead there. But there's plenty of room for you to take special squads, create your own fluff around them within the sandbox of the Coalition War, and create your own campaign and use the NPCs that are named as reference. The merc section of the book is in the same situation. In fact, it's even easier to tool out the mercenary section of the book and use it with your own GM touches. Because, they're mercenaries, they're for hire. You've got a lot more room to play. But one of the other things is, this is the book that introduces the daemonics, if I said that right. And they're rather interesting, and they're, well, I did say it right. They're hulking supernatural monstrosities. And this is actually one of the biggest pictures in the book. So as you can see by the picture here, this is the monstrosity, and that's a Samus. What else is in here? That's really about it. But they're big, and they're crazy. For example, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5 of them, there's a breakdown of their population, right? And just to put things in perspective, I'm not going to go over all their stats, but they have PPE, which is their PE attribute number, times 3 plus 220, which is excruciating high. And this is the feculence daemonix, which means foul, for those of you that aren't aware of that. And they... Where are their stats? I'm not seeing... I wanted to see... Oh, MDC of an arm is 170. They can have extra arms. Damage, let's see. They have psionics. Enemies, all demons and gods, greatly dislike dragons and other creatures. So they're pretty bad to the bone. So 2 legs, 150 mega damage. 2 arms, those are... already said the arms. They can have Techno Wizard augmentations, and let's see. This one's actually quite small. He's only 12 to 15 feet, but he's 22 to 25 feet long. So he's like a killer whale that flies through the air. They're quite interesting creatures. They can put up a heck of a fight. Which one was it? I think one of them regenerates, and regenerates ridiculous. Nothing like, vampires or werewolves, but hey. So what do I think of Tolkeen, or Siege on Tolkeen? Overkill. This is definitely a little bit more sandboxy than the first Coalition book. It is certainly not a standalone adventure. Actually, all 6 of the books, from what I've seen, are not adventures at all. They're designed for you to play during this time frame. So if you're looking for something where you can pick up and be like, I'm going to do that, no. You get to create... I mean, that's one of the things that's so great about the Coalition Wars, is the fact that you get to play any adventure you want, any important point in time during the Coalition War. It does have a fair amount... Well, actually, one of the things it does lack in is there's like no new classes in the book. There's not really any new equipment. It's really a supplemental guide. This is almost like an adventurer's guide for the Coalition War. This historical portion of the siege. So, with that said, if you're looking for something that's going to have more meat, more equipment, more characters, and not as much story background, this book might not be for you. But if you're going to run the Coalition Wars campaign, it's a wealth of knowledge, especially for the time frame of, let's see, I don't even remember when this happens. I should have wrote that down for my notes. 12 PA is when it takes place in the timeline. At least that's what the first time I saw. Somebody, maybe I'll do that too. Maybe I'll make a timeline for the Coalition Wars and put the books in their respective places with some of the characters when I'm done, because that would be kind of neat to have. But yeah, I like what Kevin's doing with these. And I know they're not new, and some of you have probably already read them, and I haven't finished them yet, so maybe by the time I get done I won't have the same opinion. But I like the way he's going with the story. I like the progression of the first book is, okay, this is the madness of the coalition state and what we believe, to this is really where it's getting nitty gritty and dirty, and the coalition has had a setback and they've learned from their setback, and now we're moving forward into book 3, which I don't even remember the title of book 3. But anyway, the Palladium books are always a little bit different because of the way they're written. Almost every Palladium book is written like an adventure's guide, with a ton of information on the setting and the world and characters and NPCs. and equipment and things of that nature in their adventure life. They leave that to your story, which is a great thing. So anyway, guys, that is my take on Coalition Wars Chapter 2, Coalition Overkill, or CS Overkill. However you want to look at it. It's Siege on Tolkeen, no matter how you look at it.